If you want to seal the border, vote Trump. If you want to restore law and order in this country, vote Trump. If you want to reignite the economy in this country, vote Trump. If you want to revive national pride in this country, vote Trump. If you want to make America great again, vote Trump. But there is one more reason I'm going to ask you to vote Trump.
So Vivek Ramaswamy is a prolific orator, presenter, and I am new to anything that he's been talking about for the RNC. So he spoke at the RNC, bold conversation and presentation at the RNC, and he recently talked about a couple of things in Fox, which I will share in a moment. But this guy is the real deal. Yes, his resume is very, very impressive. But when you're listening to him, he's actually one of the individuals that I'm almost afraid to say I actually believe what he's saying, which is weird because I do realize that most of these things are propaganda anyway. But he's really, really good at presenting his points and articulating them in such a fashion that they're easy to understand. And I really appreciate that. So welcome to my channel. My name is Andrew Alliance. I speak about things that intrigue me on this channel, from news, and I also do reaction here as well. But I'm really, really impressed with Vivek Ramaswamy. And I'm going to share a clip with you that he did on Fox News very, very recently about unification.
Well, the reality is there's also a contradiction in how they're pitching this guy Walz in the first place. They're pitching him as some sort of Midwestern unifier. The reality is this. You can't have it both ways. This is the guy that has gone out of his way to call 70 plus million Americans, if not more, in his words, just plain weird. I reject this, Larry. I think that this is fundamentally against national unity. The idea of no matter who wins this election, to say that 70 plus million people on the other side are somehow no longer part of the same culture or country is alienating. So Joe Biden campaigned on national unity. He failed miserably. Kamala Harris tries to invoke it, and so does this guy Walz. Yet it is completely contradictory with respect to their core message and approach. Now, here's my view. My top advice to our own side is this. 3 words. Focus on policy. If we focus on policy, we win this election. If we offer our own vision for the future of the United States of America, we win this election. If we fall into the trap of really following the other side's shenanigans and obsessing over that, we create greater risk for ourselves. So to me, the Walz pick actually presents risks, frankly, for both sides. The risk to the Democrats is that it causes them to lose centrist voters, as I believe they will over Walz's policy record. But I think the risk for Republicans, Larry, is that some of his stances and some of his positions and his approach have been so bad that it actually distracts us to go down a rabbit hole that we don't need to go down. Instead, we got to focus on what do we care about? Seal the border, grow the economy, stay out of World War III, and lift up all Americans, including in our national pride. Focus on that. We win this thing hands down.
So as you can see what I'm speaking about, this brother is really, really smooth when he's putting his thoughts together. And of course, very, very sharp, right? So one of the things that I want to talk about specifically in this video, because I did mention this is Vivek's bold move, right? So when you look at the conversation and the presentation that he did during the RNC, some of those things, really caught my attention. Of course, he spoke about Black America and what the promise is for Black America. And of course, these talking points are designed to pull voters in. But I just want you to hear it. If you haven't heard it before, I think it's interesting how he framed it for Black America. Take a listen.
To those of you watching this at home tonight, I'd like to deliver a message that the media doesn't want you to hear from the Republican Party. Our message to Black Americans is this. The media has tried to convince you for decades that Republicans don't care about your communities, but we do. We want for you what we want for every American. Safe neighborhoods, clean streets, good jobs, a better life for your children, and a justice system that treats everyone equally, regardless of your skin color and regardless of your political beliefs.
So if you're Black and you're in America, do you actually believe what he's saying in this speech here? I think it's really interesting that there's always a situation where a presenter makes a direct statement to the Black voters. It's a big base, right? Obviously, right? So I think that that is necessary for them to do that. But do you actually believe what he's saying, right? So not even long after that, in this particular speech, he also directs a message to millennials and makes the connection that he is one himself. So he makes a direct connection with that base, right? Smart. Makes sense, great speechwriter, whoever wrote that, right? And from there, he also talks about, pulling out college loans, how that may not necessarily be beneficial, and that kind of conversation dealing specifically with the millennials. I thought that was a really interesting take, because back in the day, if you go back a couple of decades, it was go to school, get an education so you can get a good job and you could be successful. And to be honest, with some particular industries that may work, but it doesn't necessarily work in all industries. Take a listen.
Our message to millennials, speaking as one myself, yes, it's true. Our government sold us a false bill of goods with the Iraq War and the 2008 financial crisis, loading up our national debt that falls on our generation's shoulders, telling us that if we took out college loans, we'd somehow get a head start on the American dream, when it hasn't worked out that way. But we can't just be cynical about our country, because the United States of America is still the last best hope that we have. And we deserve a better class of politician, one who actually tells us the truth, even if it comes with some mean tweets from time to time.
So I thought it was a really nice touch, towards the end of that particular section, where he says, even though it comes with some mean tweets from time to time, we don't necessarily want the mean tweets, but you're on the internet, so you're going to get a good portion of those things here and there. I get it. But my thing is, when it comes to the politics and the red versus blue, I think it's always interesting where you have all these individuals who may be super polished or who may be very, very provocative in how they present information, right? You see that often from the Republican side, and maybe you'll see that a little bit more on the Democratic side as we get closer to election, maybe 90 days or 90 plus days away from, that particular situation. And even the fact that he's talking about unifying, right? I think it's interesting that when they're talking about, whoever they may be, when they're talking about unification, they also throw shade and shots at the other side. So I'm like, okay, so how are you speaking about unification, but yet you're still throwing shade on the other side? I guess that's just the way it works in this particular game. Like I said to you before, this is a game of house of cards. And once you understand that, you're not going to necessarily tie a lot of emotion to the things that are happening in real time. When you hear these individuals speak, and he is a great speaker, don't get me wrong, like, I don't know. I may be a little, quiet fan of this guy, right? Based on how he presents and how he articulates himself, which I mentioned earlier. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And it is very, very convincing. And I wonder how much of the speech is really him along with the speechwriter. I always have like those questions. I don't know. I want to do a little bit of research on that, because I think that's extremely impressive. But the other thing, too, is that why didn't Trump pick Vivek? I'm curious. Like, haven't you asked that question? For someone this polished, prepared, why didn't he pick him? So the other part of the speech that really got me really laughing about it, when he was speaking about the conservatives and talking about going on campus, and he was like, you want to stick it to the man? I thought that was really funny. Take a listen to this part.
And our message to Gen Z is this: you're going to be the generation that actually saves this country. You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative. Say you want to get married, have kids, teach them to believe in God and pledge allegiance to their country. Because you know what? Fear has been infectious in this country, but courage can be contagious too. That too is what it means to be an American.
Are you proud to be an American where at least you're free? Are you proud of that after listening to Vivek? He is a bold speaker. Bold moves during the RNC, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with the Democratic National Convention. That is literally right around the corner, so we'll see what they do with that. But what's your take on Vivek as a speaker, as a Republican, as an entrepreneur? Any thoughts on that? We'll love to hear those thoughts. in the comments below. Also, make sure, I do appreciate it, make sure you watch this video right here, handpicked for you. And I didn't ask in the entire video, but subscribe right here. I do appreciate it. And until next time, take care.